So my name is Zeph Isom, and I'm the supply chain planning manager for Universal Lighting Technologies. We build and sell product lights work. So basically the fixtures, um, LEDs, the modules, the drivers that go into those fixtures. Um, I have a team of 5 planners down in Mexico and 1 person here in Nashville. Folks in Mexico will plan all of the production lines. So they will schedule what gets produced, when it gets produced, how much it gets produced. And then my person up here in Nashville is responsible for a lot of analytical work and stuff of that nature. He really doesn't do much of the planning aspect simply just because of location. So my responsibilities are to make sure that the information that gets fed down to my team in Mexico is accurate so they don't overbuild or underbuild. I'm also responsible for making sure that the material gets shipped to the various warehouse locations throughout the United States, Canada, and Mexico, so that we don't either have a stock out or too much inventory there. So with the rapidly changing technology in lighting, especially with LEDs, what one of the biggest challenges is making sure that we have the proper allocation of working capital to what will sell. The sales group obviously wants as much inventory as possible, stocked in locations near their customers or where their sales territory, so that they can have shorter lead times. Um, Obviously, once you build a product, you really can't rework it into something else. So the challenge is managing the expectations and needs of the sales group and making sure that the right inventory is in locations where it needs to be, but also helping them understand that if the company were to build everything that they wanted to, or the quantities that they wanted, then we would run out of money and we would just have piles of inventory sitting there that wouldn't turn. So using a lot of data to help tell that story of, you want to stock 1,000 pieces of this product in Tennessee, for example, but we've only sold on average 50 pieces a month. So it maybe only makes sense to stock 100 pieces until we start to see more demand. So the challenges of different competing functions, what their goals are, is something that is a daily struggle. Right. So definitely what you're doing with the integrated business core and where you're emphasizing in a specific function within business management really helped me prepare and be more focused within the supply chain group. So the um, class that Kunzler taught was very beneficial. Mike Whitesides, I don't think he's a professor there anymore. He might have went back to Intel. He did some buy side slash sell side classes, and that was also very beneficial. Statistics is really beneficial. So I think there's a IBC specific business statistics now offered. Back then, when I took it in, we just took general business statistics. We didn't have one that was focused solely on IBC. So pay attention to what is discussed there, because as I mentioned with the sales group, they like to anecdotally say, I need this, or we're losing hundreds of customers, or they like to tell stories. But as part of your rationale and reasoning on why you maybe need to restrain them a little bit in terms of what they want, is to use data. So have the data tell a story, but not make it too complicated that no one else can understand it. We focus on statistics and the analytical the coursework found in Excel. Database would be helpful as well. Learning how the database system works. Right now, we use what's called Oracle Business Intelligence. So anything and everything about any transaction within the company, any little transaction or any big transaction is in that database. So if I want to find out what we sold 5 years ago that was shipped out of the warehouse in Arizona, that was a packed fluorescent lamp, I can find that. So being able to understand how a database works and being able to manipulate the data to get what you want to help tell your story is important. So it kind of goes back to the analytics, big data. Definitely take time to study your statistics and really figure out ways to apply that to your personal life. Would be beneficial. Negotiations would also be helpful. It's a give and take world out there. You're not going to get everything that you want. You're going to have to be able to tell your side of the story and do it in a way that you don't alienate the other party. So negotiations classes are very helpful. An article I would recommend to read on that and just leadership in general would be Change the Way. It's a Harvard Business Review article. I found that to be very helpful in learning how different people work. Accounting and finance, when you're able to understand the decisions that you make in supply chain and how they affect the bottom line, is very beneficial too. That way you're able to make more informed decisions about what is best for the company, not only just short term, but also long term. So understanding the cost of capital and have something that's not really turning. Maybe it has 12 turns a year when if you make a few changes, it would have 15 to 20 turns a year. How would that change your working capital structure so that you can use that cash more wisely other than having it sitting on the shelf? So it can be very stressful at times because we have, with our company, we have two or three huge customers that account for probably 50% of our revenue. So when something goes wrong with one of those customers, and more often than not, it's because of them, spike in demand or something like that, and they don't care how we service them; they just need to be serviced. Being able to um, and uh, um, gather the information or the data that you need to make the most informed decision possible. Being able to provide to your boss or your boss's boss all the information relevant for them to make the most informed decision is helpful. Um, you'll find that within different companies, within different organizations, there can be some very strong personalities. Folks that uh, sometimes may even borderline on acting a little childish, and you don't understand why they're behaving this way. So being able to have um, a calm, level-headed personality where you don't um, add to the anxiety or stress that that person is causing will be beneficial too. Having a desire to dig in to find out why. Why is this happening? Um, kind of go through the 5 whys to find the root cause of the situation. Being able to be curious about a problem that may not seem like a big deal right now, but it could escalate. Curiosity would help as a leader too. Um, Not being afraid to cut loose somebody, even though they may be a very hard worker, but they may have um, a leadership style or personality of their own that is not conducive to the work environment. So, for example, my supervisor down in Mexico, very hard worker, knew a lot of stuff. Um, uh, when I got promoted into my role, I was excited to be able to pull him and bring him into that supervisor role down there because I knew that he would put in the time, the hours, and make things work. Over time, though, it became apparent that his leadership personality to those other folks that reported to him was not appropriate. After coaching and trying to help him change and improve, it just didn't happen. So I had to let him go. And while that was hard because he got things done and I wouldn't have to worry about um, if the product that needed to be built was going to be built on time. Um, he was very good at that stuff, but in hindsight, that was definitely the right decision to make because he was poisoning the of the um, other workers, not just with my team, but with other teams as well. So don't be afraid to trying hard to help someone improve. Let them go. Infect negatively the rest of the culture where they're at. If you have control over that. If you deal with someone who's like that, but you don't have any control over that aspect, then it kind of goes back to staying calm, making sure that you do your part to help the company move forward and not add to the anxiety or stress that this one person may cause.